You're all very welcome here today. Our event, now it's becoming an annual event, cutting through the AI hype. And what we're hoping today is each of you will take away a little nugget, have a think about it, and hopefully we'll give you enough information here today that you can either continue your AI journey or even start it. So I have a number of thank yous before we kick into the event. And I suppose a very big one to Microsoft here, Claire Hillis, who's sitting here. And Claire is Microsoft's partner sales director here in Ireland. And Claire and her team have been really good to us, organising today, but also over the years, Claire helping us as an organisation and also our customers. So thank you, and she's going to give us some insights from a Microsoft perspective on where AI is and where it's going. So as well as Claire, we have some guest speakers, and we really thank them for their generosity in giving their time. First of those is Paul Spring. Paul is the CIO in the DPP's office. And the DPP is the Director of Public Prosecutions. It's the authority responsible for all criminal prosecutions in Ireland. So hopefully none of us appear on one of Paul's files as we go down the road. But the DPP's office, it has over 300 staff, and it works with 200 barristers and over 30 state solicitors. So they're a very busy, I don't know where Paul is. Oh, there he is in front of me. God, the old eyesight has gone very bad, Paul. But I don't want to steal your thunder here on your slides, but Paul was like you this time last year, came to the event, sat there, and went away with some ideas. And what Paul has done and his team in the last year is incredible. So looking forward to your talk, Paul. Second up is Paddy Slattery. Paddy's here as well. Paddy's IT Operations Manager in the Motor Insurance Bureau of Ireland. We all know it as MIBI, and it was established back in 1955 by the government to compensate victims for uninsured driving. So those that are unfortunate to come across an uninsured driver, the Motor Insurance Bureau of Ireland would look at, but they've a wider remit. And they act as the, I suppose, conduit between the insurers in Ireland and government agencies like the Gardaí, probably like the DPP's office. They act as that conduit between the insurers. And Paddy and his team, I suppose their biggest remit is getting uninsured drivers off the road. And you might have seen recently the number has fallen from just over 8% down to just over 4%, which has effectively halved. And a lot of that is down to Paddy and the team utilising technology, capability, working with the Gardaí. But just to give you an idea of what that means in reality, like the road deaths on every year, the biggest proportionate is down to uninsured drivers. That it's a factor way beyond anything else. So it's significant that the work that Paddy and the team are doing, continuing to drive that down. And our final speaker, and as Fiona said, she's a graveyard shift, but she hasn't. Fiona is CEO of Member First Credit Union. It's one of the largest credit unions in Ireland. And we've been working with Fiona and her team for the past 2 years. Fiona's rolling out a customer experience platform, and it's based on dynamics. You say, what's interesting about that? Well, the key to that is it's fully integrated with the back-end banking system, and they also are utilizing an awful lot of AI within the platform. So it's a very interesting story. Fiona will give you the highs and the lows, and like everything, there's lows, but there's a lot of highs, and it's very exciting because it is the first platform of its kind to be rolled out in Ireland. So again, thanks Fiona for coming along. Second last thank you to our own team, Jenny, Annette, Pete, Noel, Marlene, a longer list for putting today together. But I suppose a final thank you to you for giving of your time. The purpose of today is to share information. There's a lot of people here. Talk to the people at your tables, get some insights from them. We're really here to help, and Claire and her team as well. If you find 2-3 months down the road, weeks down the road, just pick up the phone, send an email, and we'll chat to you. That's what we did with you, Paul, last year, and things worked out very well. So with that, I'll hand you over to Pete, our group CTO.
As Nick says, this event is becoming a bit of a tradition. It's certainly a regular routine. And it's become a bit of a tradition of mine to introduce my part with a personal story. So here goes. Right. If you can picture the scene when I am I'm at primary school, I'm probably about 7 or 8 years old, and I know this will come as a surprise, but probably not the coolest kid in the school, right? And my brother turns up to pick me up from school on his motorbike, his massive motorbike. Now, that was a surprise to me too, because he never lived at home with us, so I wasn't expecting him, and he turned up, and I hop on this motorbike. And the helmet on, hold on, I'm behind. And he roars off. He guns the engine on this motorbike, and we roar off into the distance in a cloud of exhaust fumes, excitement, and Old Spice aftershave. And I suppose just at that instant, and only for that instant, ever in my life, I was the coolest kid in the school, right? Roaring off. And we went through a couple of little bends and whatever, and then we got to a sharp bend in the road. And my brother did what you're supposed to do on a motorbike. He leaned the bike in. I didn't know that's what you're supposed to do on a motorbike. I didn't even have a pedal cycle at that stage. So I leaned the other way because I thought we were crashing. That caused the bike to go all over the place. It's a bit of an emergency. Now my brother recovered it. He did very well. He recovered the bike. And he pulled up, and he's shaking a bit because he knew my mother would bloody kill him if I come off the bike. And he turned around to me and he said to me, "Peter, I'm so sorry. I should have told you how to ride a bike before getting you on the back." Right? And the moral of this story is that when something new, powerful, and tremendously exciting comes along, the temptation is to jump on it and roar off into the distance. But actually what you really need to do is have a think about it, have a bit of training, a bit of understanding how to use it, and that's what we hope to do for you today in this event. Now, I've left my clicker behind, so I have to run around here.
Typical modern office setting. Too much work, especially admin, and too few hours. Imagine if you could hire intelligent assistants to take on a lot of your workload. What a difference that would make. 2026 is the year of the digital employee. McKinsey's Chief Executive Officer, Bob Sternfeld, says, "Last year, McKinsey had 35,000 employees. The firm now has 60,000 employees, and 25,000 of them are AI employees."
25,000 AI employees. Let's let that sink in for a moment. But when you think about, I suppose, an AI employee, a digital employee, you can call it a digital assistant if you like, what you need is a framework, a way of thinking about these that takes it out of the domain of being technical. They are technology, but the way to think about them is not a technology. The way to think about them is, as we call them, digital employees. So what we do in TEKenable is we give them a job description, we give them defined performance expectations, a career plan, and even a salary. And we write that down and we consider it because that constitutes the business case. What is this digital employee going to do for us? What's its role in the organization? How's that going to benefit us? How well is it going to do it? What are the boundaries around it? The things it will do and the things it definitely won't do. The career progression plan is how you train it. How do you make it better? How do you increase its capabilities? And the salary is the cost that it will incur, first of all, to set it up, which is the sign-on fee, if you like, for recruiting this digital employee into your organization, and then the monthly cost, the salary to actually run it. And if you go through that process, and if you look at things in that way, that becomes transportable from the people on the shop floor can understand it, the people in the technology team can understand what's being asked of them, and all the way up to the board of directors who may have no understanding whatsoever of the technology. They can all understand this concept of a digital employee because it's cast in terms of a human being, a human employee. And I'll walk you through an example. Now, it's quite wordy, but almost every company in this room probably has the equivalent of an info at or services at or help at type of mailbox that they get emails into. And you're probably getting a very, very large volume of randomly mixed type stuff. And if you're like most companies, you're probably not actually able to keep up with responding to all the things perhaps that should be responded to out of that mailbox. So this is a really good example of where a digital employee can come into play. And we've got the job description here, which I can show you can all read. The essence of the job description is you're going to read the emails. The AI will read them, understand what they're about, categorize them. If they're noise, so nothing to do with this company, they're an advert for something, for example, or maybe a recruitment company sending you something in that just speculatively, you can park them. The AI can move them aside, get them out of the way. If they come from your customers, but not necessarily the customers you deal with, but within your customers' companies, that could be a new contact, a new opportunity. Have the AI create that opportunity in CRM and refer it to your account manager for that company, and so on. You can see here, for example, in the expected performance, that what we're expecting of this AI is it will process every email within a minute of arrival and respond within the boundaries of its knowledge. We don't want it making stuff up. We don't want it using its general knowledge. We'll give it curated knowledge about the products and services of your company, and it will respond within the boundaries of that. And it will know if it can do that or not. So it can answer a question. Does TEKenable provide Business Central services? Michelle, do we provide Business Central services? Yes, we do. Okay. So we can have a digital employee that understands at a high level, or whatever level of detail you like, the services and products that you sell, and can reply to basic inquiries and keep that chain going, respond quickly, engage them in a conversation, and maybe bring them in and book an appointment with them. The career progression is going to be that initially you want this email service to create drafts, not actually send the emails, to create the drafts in the drafts folder. So a human being can go through and go, that looks right, oh no, that one's not quite as right as it could be, that one's plain wrong, and choose which ones to send and which ones to intervene. But as the human operator becomes more confident in what the AI can and cannot do, we refine the instructions to it, and it starts to understand what it can actually be allowed to autonomously send. So we allow it to send some of the emails in response. That's the career progression. More and more things it becomes able to answer and respond to on its own. And as for salary, well, the cost depends on how many emails it's responding, how much effort is involved, how much documentation it has to read to respond, and so on and so forth. So typically what we do is a proof of value type of exercise with the digital employee so we can get a sense of what it would be able to do. We do some analysis up front so we can project what the cost would look like. What you can guarantee is it would be lower cost than having a human being doing it, doing within the scope of what it can do. Okay. So, coupled with the idea of a digital employee comes the concept of a frontier firm. So frontier firms, as it says up there, are firms that act and think in this fashion. And I suppose TEKenable is one of those frontier firms. We have digital employees or capabilities within our organization already. They help us to respond to tenders. They'll draft answers for public tender responses. They will critique public tenders. They will actually score them, our response, before we submit it, as though it was being scored by the government department that issued the tender. And in that way, gives us a feedback and gives us the ability to refine what we're doing. We have capabilities, digital employees within project management that help surface insights. Within effort estimation, that's in its very, very early stages. I wouldn't let that one loose yet, but it's estimating some of our projects, supporting software development, and so on, all the way through to the non-technical domains like HR and finance. And we've actually created some for our own customers as well, which I'm not going to go through because you're actually going to meet these during the course of today in one guise or another. But these are digital employees that we have created and deployed into our customers. And as I say, you'll meet them later on. So what I would like to do now is introduce Claire Hillis, who's going to give us the Microsoft perspective.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here today, presenting to you on behalf of TEKenable. And it was a great introduction there that Peter made, because I'm actually going to talk to you about our Work Trend Index 2025, which was just released a few months ago, really, even though we're in 2026. And for those of you that don't know what the Microsoft Work Trend Index is, it's a report that we do globally across 31 countries, and we survey 31,000 employees across various organizations. We take information and data from LinkedIn. We take information from Microsoft 365 Productivity, and we also interview AI startups and economists and academics to get a good view of what's happening out there in the world. What are employees feeling? What are the trends? And where are we going? And then in Ireland, and I'm going to talk to you specifically today about our Work Trend Index from an Irish perspective. We do our own Work Trend Index as well, so we refer to the global one, but we scale it back a little and we interview, say, 1,000, 1,500 employees, and we take all sorts of data again from LinkedIn, economists, various academics to have our own Work Trend Index. And it's really very interesting. And I think that it's fair to say that we have gone through, in modern times, we've gone through 3 phases or changes to how we work. And the first change, I suppose, was the Industrial Revolution, which separated work from home. And then we had the internet, which separated work from place. But now we're in that third phase, as Peter has talked about, where AI is separating work from human capacity. And Peter talked about frontier firm, but this is where it birthed from, that concept of frontier firm. It was from that gap between what organizations want and what humans can actually deliver. So organizations now, these frontier organizations, are redesigning their business around intelligence on tap and human agent teams, as Peter has already talked about. And I don't know if I don't want to be controversial, the idea of a robot, because I think sometimes that puts people off, but it's agentic style technology that is augmenting the work of humans. And as we go along today, we're going to hear lots more about that. And Ireland isn't on the sidelines of this transformation and this shift. It's right in the middle of it. So what did our Work Trend Index tell us? Well, we see that actually paradoxically, burnout is at a 3-year low, but really weirdly, workplace happiness has declined, and it's taken us a while to understand what's going on here. People are calling for a lot more flexibility, but it's good to see that AI skills, people see that as a real catalyst for their career. So we're trying to understand as we kind of progress, what is it that's going to help people feel less or feel more happy at work. One thing we can tell for sure is that AI adoption is no longer tentative, it's absolutely intentional. in Ireland. We can see that it's going up 27% year on year. And the good thing is that 5 in 10 people believe that AI skills broaden their career opportunities. 4 in 10 think that it helps them work smarter. And 3 in 10 consider new paths due to AI, new career paths. So people are seeing AI as a catalyst to help them get promoted, which is really interesting. The question isn't anymore, will AI take my job? It's, how can my employer skill me up fast enough to keep up? And that's the real question now employees are asking, because this technology is rapidly developing faster than most of us can really take it in. And employees are really looking to their employer to help with this. The access to training, though, isn't even as far as this Work Trend Index tells us. We see that it's at board level. We've got 91% of board level execs are using AI versus 39% of non-managers. 61% of employees said that training from employers will really speed up adoption. And of course, there's a gender gap. 63% of men versus 47% of women use AI. I was just remarking to Annette before this session started about the number of men in this room compared to women. So it's interesting that we're also pointing out there's a gender gap in terms of AI use. And of course, generational differences in AI usage. We see that the younger generations, 18 to 35, are using it more than the older generations. So we don't want AI the hierarchy to become a blocker for AI adoption. It's very important that organisations aren't doing this, that it's just staying at board level. It needs to be disseminated throughout the organisation. And it's the frontier firms that are doing this. They're training people. They're infusing it into the organisation. They're setting up skills academies, and they're really helping employees have that AI first approach to their work. So our workforce, it looks to be in flux. We can see that 38% of workers are moving roles. That's doubled within the past couple of years. We see people more keen to change roles. They're faster to sort of get fed up with where they are if things aren't going well for them. But the good thing is that if they see growth opportunities, 57% are prepared to stay. So we need to get strategies in place, retention strategies in place for employees. And a lot of that is around new career pathways. People, it isn't so much we've found through these surveys that pay, although important, it isn't the biggest issue. People want to be happy where they are. They want to feel fulfilled. They want to feel developed, and they don't want to feel that the organisation they're working in is going to leave them behind in terms of those skills required for the future. We talked a little bit at the start about burnout being at a 3-year low, and but yet workplace happiness falling to 65%. People are really crying out for more flexibility. They're crying out for balance, well-being. Gartner talks about well-being being so important now in terms of organisations' number one strategy. It isn't anymore about we can't not look after our employees. That's a big performance inhibitor. So as a solution to all of this, of course, you would expect me to say that it's AI, but in fact, that's what the survey has said. It helps manage workload. It's reducing stress for people. It allows them to focus on higher value tasks. And 91% of Irish users say AI improves work quality, and it's seen as a remedy for workplace pressure. However, let's just zoom out for a few minutes, and I'm not going to talk through every statistic here, you'll be pleased to see. But this is a report from our from IBEC Digital Ambition Paper 2025, and it's looking specifically at where Ireland is in terms of digital adoption. And some good things that we can see that in terms of our basics digital skills, that we're ahead of our European neighbours, so that by some significant percentages there. We can see that we've got more ICT graduates. We can see that, in fact, we've got more female ICT specialists. And we can see that we have a larger percentage of enterprises purchasing certain cloud computing. So we do have in Ireland a great digital infrastructure. However, we still are seeing that there's very slow progress in SME digitisation, such as AI, cloud and big data. We would expect that to be much faster given the infrastructure that we have here. We also see that there's insufficient investment in innovation. I'm sure you'd all agree. Despite ambition from the government around skilling, we don't see the dedicated funding streams for AI-related skills and development. And I know that we're all lobbying for that, certainly here at Microsoft. In terms of gaps, other gaps, our regulatory complexity causes, I think, hesitation around AI adoption in a number of cases. And the lack of a streamlined regulatory action plan causes us to be delayed in terms of our adoption. Public sector, and it's great to have Paul here leading the way in AI adoption, but we're seeing that there is weak public sector digital transformation. It's definitely lagging. And we're looking to public sector organisations that have that massive scale to be rolling out scaled AI solutions so that our private sector can learn from these and see the innovation. We want public sector to be using AI to change citizen, transform citizen services. So I think we can safely say that we're now in Ireland at a choice point. We hear that AI is dramatically changing the workplace. We all see that. We know that employees are ready. They're ready to take on their next stage of their development. However, we also know that there's not enough training and support for employees. And employers need to really focus on that. We really need equal access in the organisation for employees. The organisations now that are going to win are going to be those that invest in people to unlock new opportunities. They have developed communities within the organisation to scale AI and to help people understand how to use it. And they're anchoring AI to growth. They're not, these organisations aren't stuck in pilot purgatory that we've seen a lot of organisations stuck for the past 12 months. And so we need to listen to what's happening in the market and we need to respond accordingly. And I think today, as you go through today, listening to all the presentations on how AI is being used, I think it's good for you to stop for a moment and think about where you are on your journey to being a frontier firm. Are you ready? What changes do you need to make within your organisation to become that? And it is a little bit about setting up a task force. The organisations that we see doing it well have a really structured, governed approach to how AI is going to be rolled out through the organisation. And they're winning and they're getting ahead. So I think as you sit here today, you need to think about where you are in your journey, what you need to do, and about whether you want to win. Because if you do, you need to act. So good luck and thank you.
So next up, Paul Spring.
Good morning. I'm Paul Spring. As Peter and others have mentioned, I'm the Chief Information Officer in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. I'm one of the few boys in the organisation. We're very heavily weighted the other way. 77% of the staff are girls. I notice sometimes sitting in meetings going, I'm alone again. I've been with the Office of the DPP it was 2 years last week. It was 1 year last week, or this week as well, that I think, as Nick mentioned at the start, that it was at this event here that I was talking to, I think it was Noel outside, about a problem we were having. Probably one of these things that it's not going to be written down in the words on the slides, one of these things you don't always own up to. And Noel said, Peter, come over here for a minute, listen to this. It kind of took off from there. We do have a solution in place now for this particular problem. I'll get into it in a minute. Just one other thing that Claire mentioned about adoption in the public sector. It is true, these things can be very slow. I'll go through the timelines from the concept of this to when it was actually launched. The bottleneck for us was the internal politics around it. It was the fear of are we really talking about an AI tool making decisions on prosecutions? And it was the internal piece around that of saying, no, that is not what we're talking about at all. It was putting the guardrails in place were the slow pieces for us. The internal, what can we let it do? How far can we go with it? What guidelines should we give to our staff around it? But look, very briefly, a lot of people have probably heard this term, a file has been sent to the DPP. As Nick mentioned, hopefully people just see that in media reports. It's not a guy in a uniform saying it about you. Almost all of our cases come from An Garda Síochána. They're effectively our only customer. We get a handful of cases every year from the Health and Safety Authority, possibly revenue if somebody has stolen a boatload of drugs. Occasionally the Corporate Enforcement Authority, but they are very much the edge cases. Almost everything comes from An Garda Síochána. Our prosecutors, Nick mentioned the numbers, we've about 330 staff in the office in Dublin, and we have a state solicitors network around the country who deal with different crimes in different counties, traditionally in the lower level courts. Our prosecutor's job is to make a decision. It's a very binary decision. It's either prosecute somebody or don't prosecute somebody. If they decide to prosecute somebody, they also decide on what are the charges that we can actually bring against this person. A lot of interaction back and forward with An Garda Síochána to say, is there enough information here? But it's a reasonably straightforward business process that happens in the office of the DPP. Is there any lawyers here, just in case I play it down? I'm a devil for playing it down and saying it's an easy job and it's a straightforward business process. We need our lawyers and our prosecutors. They're making the complex decision and weighing up the evidence against the law. But when you draw it down as a business process, it's straightforward. So I don't mean to play down lawyers. I'll just point out I am not a lawyer. I have no legal training, as is regularly pointed out to me by our very clever legal staff. What we're looking for is sufficient evidence that could lead a court or a jury to find that accused person guilty beyond any reasonable doubt. We've all heard these terms. There's lots of movies, lots of TV shows with lots of lawyers in them. But broadly, in Ireland, it's very stable. We get 16 to 17,000 cases annually sent to us almost entirely from An Garda Síochána. They're big numbers. 34% of our cases come into us and they go no further. There's not enough evidence there. They're the bad news ones. They're the ones that the victim of a crime, there's always a victim of a crime. 34% of them have to be told bad news of there isn't enough evidence here. 66% could lead to a prosecution. It doesn't mean they'll be found definitely guilty in court, but they lead to the trial moves forward. Of those 66%, it's the district court. This is low-level stuff. Look, nobody wants to be accused of a crime. Nobody wants to be a victim of a crime. You don't want to play down crimes, but these are district court. There's no jury involved. It's the lower-level stuff. It's driving the car on the mobile phone repeatedly while playing with the phone and all sorts of stuff. There's no jury, district court. It's summary disposal. It's the judge says, don't do it again. There's no jail time involved. The higher courts then kick in for the other stuff. So 34%, it's called prosecution on indictment. So you're going into the higher level courts. And we will get to the AI stuff shortly. Look, if a decision is made by one of our prosecutors, the next steps are the accused person, and I have to be careful of my terminology. I kept saying the criminal. They're not a criminal. They're an accused person or a suspect. They're charged by the Gardaí, not by the DPP's office. The DPP's office effectively instructs the Gardaí to say, we've reviewed the evidence, we've reviewed what's happened here, go and charge them with the crime. Arrest them, charge them with the crime. If it's a serious case, a book of evidence is served. That's the bit we're gonna talk about in a couple of minutes. It's a book of evidence. We've probably all heard the term before. Sometimes there's a pre-trial plea discussion to say, look, we've got quite a bit on you. Any chance you don't want to let this go as far as a court case in front of a jury? Any chance you'll just plead guilty to some of this based on what's going on? And disclosure is the process of the DPP's office has to tell the accused person everything that we have about them. If the pleas aren't taken, if the disclosure happens, it's a trial in an appropriate court, followed by sentencing, followed by possible appeals. These processes can go on for years. The appropriate court is, as we mentioned, district court, lower level stuff. Circuit court, more serious crimes. Central criminal court, the very, very serious stuff. Some of these very, very serious crimes, like murder, can actually be easier to prosecute. A lot of people tend to murder people only once. It tends to be somebody they know. If it's a murder case, the guards engage their serious investigation officers. They're very, very experienced. They're very, very good at what they do. Forensic Science Ireland can get involved. So it tends to be cleaner processes. Sexual offences stuff is notoriously difficult. It tends to be one person's word against another. A lot of the time there isn't evidence. It's the really hard stuff. But they go onwards to the Central Criminal Court. Special Criminal Court doesn't happen that much, but it's the non-jury Special Criminal Court. It's where jury intimidation is a concern. Can often be quite a bit of evidence. If a trial, our prosecutors or our barristers who represent the Director of Public Prosecutions, they present the case on behalf of the people of Ireland in court. Witnesses give evidence, the defence presents its case. They might call witnesses, they might call the accused person. If a jury is involved, it's the jury that decides whether somebody is guilty or not, based on the evidence they've heard. If guilty, it's the judge, and the judge alone, that imposes the sentence. If not guilty, it's acquittal. That's the high-level process. It's this piece is where we started talking to Peter last year around some of the problems that we were facing. It's the book of evidence piece. The prosecution, so the Director of Public Prosecutions, must share all of the relevant evidence with the defence, not the criminal, the accused person, the suspect. They must share the witness statements, Garda reports, expert reports, and increasingly more and more digital evidence. We get massive amounts of CCTV. I think it was 100 terabytes we took in last year related to 16 or 17,000 crimes. Body-worn cameras are new avenues that the guards are going down. Brilliant project. It's still in a proof of concept, but it will dramatically change our work. There can be videos, interviews of videos, and lots of multimedia files, text files, Instagram messages, direct messages. Everything that we get, we have to share with the accused person's defense solicitor. Just as a broad outline, we were holding about 90 terabytes of data a couple of weeks ago, just related to the open cases that we're processing at the moment. Video is taking up a huge amount of it. UFDR is downloads from mobile phones. If the guards go in and raid a house, related to an organized crime gang. They might seize 20, 30 mobile phones, and then they spend a couple of weeks trying to break into them. They use lovely software called Cellbrite that somebody can look into someday. It can do some good stuff. But we still get really old technologies, like old DVD files, really difficult stuff to process, to store, to provide to our prosecutors on how to work. Lots of documents. It only makes up 2% of what we do, but they can be hundreds to thousands of pages. So that's what we're dealing with. As I said, we're the prosecution. We must share all that relevant evidence with the defense, but we are allowed to redact stuff. So if there's 2 or 3 people all accused of the crime, we'll say if Nick and Peter were the 2 suspects and they got themselves into a stolen car and they ran away with the stolen car, and they might be accused of different crimes. Peter might have hotwired the car and stolen the car. Nick might have just been an accessory who didn't tell Peter to stop. They get a book of evidence each. But we can redact certain parts of it. There might be 20 witnesses who saw them doing this. We might not want to release the names of those witnesses, and we certainly don't want to release their home addresses or their phone numbers. So we're allowed to redact parts of these. We can also redact irrelevant material, sensitive stuff. There could be counseling records. There could be doctors' reports. There could be all sorts of health professionals involved in these cases. It is highly, highly confidential stuff. So we are allowed to redact it. And the judges can get an unredacted version of it if they want to, and they can get the final say on what we are allowed to redact. They can be huge. As we mentioned, victims, accused, witnesses, investigating members. They can have the names of guards. They can have the names of prison officers if a crime happens in a prison, which happens more than you'd think. Healthcare professionals, counselors. Point is, these things are huge. Our prosecutors were doing these in a very manual way, reading through them, potentially hundreds of pages, to say, have I redacted everything? Have I redacted everything in here that could identify a person? From names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, car registration plates, PPS numbers, if it's healthcare and hospitals and things involved. It can be absolutely torturous work. Some of that, I know I'm talking about it, it's not written down on slides, because I presume these slides will be shared with people afterwards. The point is, when you're dealing with these huge documents under pressure to go into a trial, and you know the trial is happening on a certain date, the reality is mistakes get made. So 22 times in 2024, we had to go to the Data Protection Commissioner to say, we did it again. We missed something. When you keep making the same mistake repeatedly, even though it's a different case, a different person, it's one organization making the same mistake, it's easy to explain it, but it's not okay. And it was this problem where we started talking to the guys in TEKenable last year just to say, we did it again. So that was up here. We started talking to Noel and to Peter and to Nick and others around it, and the possible solution started to emerge of maybe there is a way of a second pair of eyes, or a way of preventing some of these problems from happening. For us, it was 2 potential wins here. One, it might actually help us with the problem and help us to make sure that we're redacting the right stuff, because that is fundamentally the problem. But secondly, we wanted to be able to demonstrate to the Data Protection Commission that we were really trying to stop making the same mistake over and over again. So by changing our process, even if we did make the mistake again, at least we could say, look, we really are trying to improve this. We're taking tangible steps to look into what could be done. So it was around last April, a little bit after that. It's a rough timeline. A couple of weeks after the event here, we were contacted by TEKenable, and we went through our initial requirements again. And TEKenable said, Microsoft were willing to help with this as a proof of value, which is always really appealing to a public sector customer, because you don't like taking a gamble with the taxpayers' money. If it's somebody else funding some of these proof of values, it's much more palatable. Public procurement is always difficult, but this gives you an avenue to do something. Nobody wants to be seen to be using taxpayers' money in the wrong way. But by May, we had an initial proof of value up and running. In June, Peter came in to us to talk to some of our legal staff. I had seen it. I had done some of the work with Peter and the team. June, Peter came in to talk to some of our legal staff who pointed out where I had clearly missed some of the requirements. And it grew legs a little bit from there, and suddenly people start to get ideas of, well, what about instead of phone numbers? What if you could get relationships? What if the tool could find relationships between people? I think certain medical conditions were also mentioned in that meeting to say, but what if somebody had a really specific medical condition and also happened to live in Roscommon, and they had 4 siblings? You could easily identify that person that way. So it started to grow legs, possibly a little bit more than we should have let it. But again, within a few weeks, the legal process goes on holidays for most of August. It just shuts down, the courts close. But by September, we had another proof of value ready. And by October, we had another proof of value ready, which took on a lot of the tweaks and changes. So our requirements by proof of value 4 was a second pair of eyes. And this is what I mean about the bottleneck. The slowness was our reluctance, and it's probably inherent across a lot of the public sector. It's a trust thing. It's the fear of who's going to go first with some of these sort of technologies. So we had to sell it internally of it's a second pair of eyes. It's not the machine doing the books of evidence anymore. It's a second pair of eyes who will oversee the work of the prosecutors and provide that. And that's the way we built it. We wanted it to be intuitive. This couldn't be something really hard for prosecutors to work with. They're under pressure. Their main job is to go to court and stand up in front of juries and judges. So it had to be intuitive. It was built inside our Azure tenancy. So it takes on a lot of the pre-existing stuff we had. It used our Entra IDs, conditional access rules, our roles, single sign-on. It already passed things like our data protection impact assessment because our data was staying effectively inside our Microsoft tenancy. It's called TechCheck. We're going to try and do a demo of it now, aren't we? Some of our cases can have 10 files. Some of them can have 1 file. Some of them could have 100 files if there's lots of witnesses. So it was the idea of building in this top bit here, things like the case that you're on, so that all of the information was stored together so our prosecutors could have a history of it, that they didn't have to process every document in one go. They were allowed to take a lunch break. We let them occasionally have a lunch break. So that's where it worked through 3 or 4 iterations. But it's intuitive. It's only got 1 or 2 buttons. You drop your files in. So these are fake files. They're very, very similar to what it looks like, but this is a statement from An Garda Síochána. And by intuitive, it's got one button. That's what a standard statement for us from An Garda Síochána would look like. That would be our better example of what a statement from An Garda Síochána would look. They're an incredible organization. They have a very, very, very hard job. But that's what we would kind of call a digital native document. One of the guards typed it up, sent it to us as a digital file. It doesn't always happen. But what the tool does is searches the document and shows a version of it for personally identifiable information. So it's shown that it's unredacted, and it allows us to say, Michael Byrne, where's he? It highlights him in the document. So our prosecutors have the choice of saying, that's okay, I wanted him in here. And they're allowed to say, mark okay. There's some terms in there. Obviously, unit, it might identify some things. In this case, it doesn't really. That's okay. Things like An Garda Síochána will probably become into things like proof of value number 5. That's a standard term. It's identifying somebody, but it's not necessarily identifying a person. It's not going to get anybody in trouble if that went out in an unredacted way. So it's working really well for us, and it is highlighting, obviously, where some of the problems are. Kevin Street driver, it's finding relationships between things. So it's doing an awful lot for us in terms of there as a second pair of eyes. A second example is arguably some of the more common types of files that we get from An Garda Síochána. Again, are a great bunch of lads. This is another quite normal way that we get files from An Garda Síochána. It looks like it's a digital document. It's not. Somebody printed it and threw it onto a scanner to scan it to us. It's an image. And these happen while this is only a 1 or 2 page statement. The tech check tool is still identifying the information in there, even though it's an image rather than a digital native file of words and texts. It's identifying things that are in that image. And while this one it's a readout of a Garda Síochána interview with somebody who was up to no good that day, I think this one related to drugs. It's unusually quite real. The third type of file we would get from our friends in uniforms they're becoming less common, but they very much still exist. It's a completely handwritten document. It could look like that. That is exactly what a Garda notebook statement from a witness would look like. It has that layout, those lines, those things. It expects a signature at the end. So that one has pulled out quite a few numbers for us. But the idea being, you mark certain areas as okay until you whittle down the list of, look, it's things like, again, it's extracting things like An Garda Síochána, part of a number registration plate directly there from the statement, names directly from the statements, full home addresses, air codes, mobile phone numbers, and anything that could identify that clearly is a fake one. That's me in there. So that is what the tool is doing for us. So right now, it's that second pair of eyes. As I mentioned, it's the assurance mechanism that if we continue to make these mistakes, we can say we've made real strides to try and do something along these lines to the Data Protection Commissioner. Obviously, you start to think of other use cases from it. Our next ones would be, what if it could do the redactions? So in addition to, at the moment, it's a massive time saver. It's that second pair of eyes. It's that reassurance. But we pay a massive amount of money for software licensing. Look, we won't mention products, but they begin with an A, and everybody knows who they are, who do lots of work with PDF files. They're expensive licenses. What if some of these sort of functionalities could be built into future iterations of this tool? Then you can point to real tangible cost savings as well as the monetary saving and the time savings. This one is probably, to go to Claire's point, of what if it could be almost fully automated. Technology is probably capable of doing that, but it's the optics of it, it's the regulation around it. We don't want to be seen to be saying, just yet, there's a machine doing this, there's people's liberty at stake on some of these things. So we think there's a lot of possibility with it. We think the type of media that's doing at the moment could probably be extended to other types of media, but for us, it has been fantastic.
Because Paul, actually, we were talking outside, and you were mentioning you were with a group of solicitors this week, and you were talking about this, and one of the solicitors came up and kind of, I suppose it's more, you talk about it in your organisation, people start thinking out of the box and thinking about other things.
Yes, this only came up yesterday. We were in a room talking about a completely different idea. We haven't given this to all of our prosecutors yet. We're it's been given to a number of our prosecutors who were involved in the design of it to just prove the concept of it and work it through a little bit more. So some of them were familiar with it when we were mentioning it yesterday. Somebody was in the room who had never heard of it before, but jumped on it afterwards. She's heavily involved in quality assurance checking. And it's a very manual process. There's a lot of quality assurance work. She jumped on this, said, could I have that as well? To effectively knock hours off. She just saw a completely different use case for us. She's not generating books of evidence, but she is checking the work of our prosecutors to see, are we making other mistakes? Usually after the fact, but she saw this as, this would knock hours off my day job. So yeah, a different use case, not as public facing, but again, I suppose the more you talk about some of these things, the more you see the other use cases for them.
I'm Justice from Commission Demand. Just on the concept, how accurate is the tech check working for you? Like, what if you miss some personal information and the document goes through? So is there a second pair of eyes? Is it totally AI doing it, or?
No, the tool itself is, the business process that we've employed at the moment is the tool is the second pair of eyes. The prosecutor should be doing the first pass on this. And a lot of that was to gain more confidence in it. I don't have an exact number of how accurate it is. At the moment, you saw in some of the demonstrations, it's actually finding a bit too much. And that's one of the ideas we've spoken about of, can we build in a dictionary of words that are not overly, things like An Garda Síochána, Director of Public Prosecutions, Irish Town Garda Station, that it'll find these sort of things in every document. That you'd almost have the fear that people will click through it too quickly, that if you're getting a more meaningful block. So one of the ideas is build it.
That's actually built in, you're just not using it, Paul.
We're just not using it. we have to flesh out that dictionary a bit more of what are the terms that it's okay to ignore.
Right. And I'm not sure if this is for you or for TEKenable, but in terms of training the AI to read from manual transcripts, how much hours of training did the AI require, or how was it done?
I'm not going to tell you exactly how it was done, but there are pre-built models that can read handwriting, can read text in images, and so on and so forth. And that we're leaning on them quite heavily. And then there's a layer of intelligence that we put above that as well, which does do things like would do if we configured it to do it, filter out An Garda Síochána and DPP and so on and so forth, to reduce some of the noise. So it's heavily leaning on the Microsoft Azure AI capabilities. And as Paul said, the whole software runs within his tenant. So there's Microsoft AI, then there's our business software, then there's the user interface.
Is there any specific LLMs that you're focused on, or is it just Copilot? And
we don't use LLMs for this.
okay, thank you.
Eamon King from ITC. Sorry, I just want to ask you, that one of the challenges we're having with our board is in the area of risk. So could you just give us a little insight into how you dealt with that, please?
Yeah, as I said, a lot. We're the same. We're a hugely risk-averse organisation, and it was the same when we rolled out even more widely rolled out AI tools like Copilot Chat. They've come with strong directions to our staff. We knew people were putting things into openly available chat GPTs and others to say, what does this document actually say? So we rolled out things like Copilot Chat, but with very strong guidelines. There's always a trust element, but very strong guidelines. Say, never, ever use this to make a decision on whether or not you should prosecute a case. It is, we've given them a block of, here's suitable use cases, but underneath it, it's you are responsible for your work product. Never, ever use this to make a decision on whether or not to prosecute. And it was the same with the tech check tool. It came with the guardrails of, we can provide you with a tool in a safe environment that we're comfortable where the data is sitting. We know it might need another tweak or two, and that's why the whole 300 staff don't have it yet. But human in the loop always, human first, and then push it through the tool as that second pair of eyes. Will people use it the other way around? They might. They've been asked not to. Can we stop them? Probably not, but you're dealing with, in our organization, we're dealing with pretty senior, experienced staff that they're heavily trained in legal areas. They know the dangers of these sort of things, and they know what could potentially go wrong. Whether it's an AI tool or a tired person in the loop, they're very conscious of their role and what needs to happen for them to do their part.
I might just add a little bit to that. This tool has not got an expectation of 100% accuracy.
No.
It's a goalkeeper. It is not a solid brick wall. And that's really important. So I suppose what our demo lacked there in terms of context was that the documents weren't redacted. The documents that come into this have already been redacted. So it is trying to find things that have been missed potentially in those documents. If it misses something, it's still doing a better job than the human did on their own. But it's not going to be perfect. It's never, ever going to be perfect. It will reduce the error rate, but it's not going to reduce it to zero. Now, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Paddy Slattery from the Motor Insurance Bureau of Ireland.
So yeah, I'm going to have a quick chat to you today just about how the MIBI itself plans to use AI to help internally our own claims processes and to also improve road safety with the use of the Irish Motor Insurance Database. You may have heard about the Irish Motor Insurance Database, or I met over the last week or so just of how the Gardaí are going to be using it, and we'll just edge into a bit of that as I go through the presentation. So just quickly about MIBI. So we are a non-profit organisation established in 1955 by the government and by the insurers operating in the state. Our primary responsibility is to compensate victims of road traffic accidents involving uninsured or unidentified vehicles. However, MIBI has a number of additional roles. We operate as Ireland's Green Car Bureau, so ensuring that individuals involved or impacted by vehicles registered outside the state are not disadvantaged. In addition, we manage the Motor Insurance Information Centre of Ireland. This provides vital information to victims of road traffic accidents, including identifying the insurer and, where relevant, the claims representative of the alleged offending vehicle. As Ireland's compensation body under the EU Motor Insurance Directive, we investigate claims made by Irish residents involved in road traffic accidents occurring in other EU member states. We are also the Irish Motor Compensation Body, which means that MIBI will step in should an insurer go into liquidation. And as I said, MIBI also operate as the Irish Motor Insurance Database, which provides vehicle and driver data to An Garda Síochána. Just our partnership with TEKenable. So we have developed a very strategic partnership with TEKenable. Their initial development with us was to modernise our legacy claims system, enhancing functionality within the existing database. So this was a project that proved highly successful and has laid the foundation for a strong and long-term partnership. TEKenable has since provided invaluable guidance on the ongoing development of our claims database, Presto, helping us align our systems with best practice and efficiency and security. 3 years ago, with their support, we successfully migrated the Presto application to a cloud-based platform. This was a complex undertaking that involved not only the transition of on-premise data, but also enabling secure, seamless access for our external users across multiple organizations. So across all our claim handling roles, MIBI are actively looking for AI solutions to assist in providing a better customer experience, and in the case of the Irish Motor Insurance Database, to help improve road safety. We've now begun to look at how AI or advanced technologies can be deployed within the Presto framework in areas such as claims processing, fraud, and then emails. So within claim processing, so anyone here that receives handwritten forms from customers will understand there's a lot of time and effort involved in reviewing the form, then transposing that information onto, in our case, a claims handling system, and of course, that horrible job of trying to decipher some very questionable handwriting. Even once we've created the claim, using the data on the claim form, the process is still not finished. There may be a covering letter from a solicitor, a medical report, a guard report, an accident investigators report, that all needs to be attached to that new claim we've just created. This is all time consuming and can at times lead to errors that then have to be rectified, which in turn causes delays to the investigation of the actual claim itself. So in conjunction with TEKenable, MIBI are looking at creating a digital employee that will read the claim form and create the claim, as well as attaching any supporting documents as part of the claim notification. Further correspondence received during the lifetime of the claim will also be scanned, the claim identified, and automatically attached to the relevant claim form using AI. Fraud detection. So I suppose like many companies, we can be subject to fraudulent claims. You might recall recently in the last month or so, we had a case, we call it the Oscar case within the office, where we had an individual that was so badly injured that he could barely walk. That turned out that we had somebody investigate him, and we were video evidence of him walking up to his car with his wheelchair in his hand, opening his boot, picking up the wheelchair, putting it into his boot, driving to his medical appointment, opening the boot, taking out the wheelchair, and having his family push him all the way in. So that's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. That was a 9-year legal battle to try and get through, and that ended up with him being sentenced to 3.5 years. So you can see how AI may help us in trying to identify these claims. So AI can play a significant role in detecting similar fraud within our claims. So AI systems can analyze large volumes of claims data, looking for patterns or anomalies that might indicate fraudulent behavior. These systems will use machine learning algorithms to compare new claims with historical data, flagging those that deviate from typical patterns or exhibit characteristics associated with known fraud cases. Specifically, AI looks for inconsistencies in reported accidents, such as mismatches between damages described and actually damages as per an assessor's report, repeated claims from the same individuals or addresses, and unusually rapid filings of claims after a policy has been purchased, or in some cases making a claim just inside that statute of limitations that relate to that claim. AI also opens up the possibility of examining claimant behavior, patterns in claimant descriptions, and external data sources such as social media to find evidence of staged accidents or inflated losses. You will be amazed by looking at Facebook, Instagram, what we see of individuals saying they're badly injured, they can't do anything, but then they're doing weightlifting competitions, and they publish that on Facebook, on Instagram. It's all there to be caught. So by automating all these checks, AI will help insurers identify suspicious claims quickly and allocate resources more efficiently for further investigation. So that's what it's about for us. It's identifying that claim as quick as possibly we can, and then alerting it onto our claim handlers for them to do that further investigation into it. Deepfakes as well, so they are becoming more and more of an issue for insurers, and it's becoming harder to detect deepfakes without AI assistance. So as you know, deepfakes are digitally manipulated videos or images that can be used to falsify evidence, making it difficult for claims assessors to distinguish genuine accidents from fraudulent ones. AI can be used to help detect deepfake content in motor insurance claims. We can use tools to analyze visual and audio patterns and look for anomalies such as unnatural facial movements, inconsistent lighting, or mismatched audio cues. These systems can flag suspicious content for further review and again reduce the risk of fraudulent claims and can help improve the accuracy and efficiency of claims investigations. This is becoming a very big problem across the insurance industry of trying to decipher what an image that you see as to whether that's actually what happened or not, especially in relation to photographs of damage. We'll see ones where a car has been damaged and you'll see that the bumper as such being marked in, but when you look into the header or look into the background of the photograph, you can actually see that has been digitally enhanced. And that's what we're trying to fight against. So for the Irish Motor Compensation Body, so we've been recently appointed that the Irish Motor Compensation Body only within the last 1.5 years. So this function will require MIBI to step in for liquidated insurers and handle claims related to that liquidated insurer's policyholders. Essentially, we are now a one-stop shop for insolvencies, regardless of whether they happen or which EU country the insurer is registered in. This is a fairly complex process. We could literally go from having 0 claims to deal with in relation to the Irish Motor Compensation Body to having thousands, depending on the size of that liquidation. As a result, then we may have to integrate our systems, our claim handling system within other claim handling systems, or even worse, we might even just get a big truckload of paper and kind of go, there you go, there's your claims, go deal with them. So AI can significantly simplify this process by automating data collections. AI tools can gather accident information, wild vehicle information, and photographic evidence, reducing manual entries. Emails, they're a great one. As we mentioned before, we have an info at MIBI and we have an FD at MIBI. So we tend to get a lot of emails that come in very generic. I've forgot my password in relation to the National Fleet Database. It can be, how do I upload my vehicle? How do I take down my vehicle? This is very time consuming and not best use of MIBI staff time. So we plan to leverage AI powered tools to respond to emails efficiently and effectively. So by analysing the content of any incoming email, we'll be using AI to draft personalised replies, suggest appropriate responses, and then even automate routine communications. This not only saves time, we hope, but will also help maintain a consistent and professional tone in all of our email interactions. You'd be amazed, you can have a QA on a website, or an FAQ on a website, sorry, and people still won't read it. They will still send in the same questions, and we are answering the same questions. That's essentially what we hope to eliminate by bringing this in. So we've just seen several areas where AI could be implemented across the MIBI estate and have a significant impact on data quality and claims processing. In relation to fraud detection, this may have an impact on road safety, as fraudsters will no longer take the risk of staging an accident, as their chances of being caught have increased. In addition, by creating this digital employee, MIBI will be able to redeploy existing staff to more value-added roles and allow staff to progress quicker within the company. Integrating AI solutions into our motor claims workflows has the potential to provide real-time updates to customers, accelerate settlement times, and improve overall customer satisfaction. I'm now just going to delve a bit more into the Irish Motor Insurance Database and the impact that it is having on Irish road safety and how AI can further assist changes that MIBI are calling for. But let's have a quick look at why IMID, as I call it, is required. So at the end of 2022, it was estimated that over 8%, or 1 in 12, of private motor vehicles on our roads were uninsured. At that time, we had one of the highest uninsured driving rates in Europe, 3 times that of the UK and 4 times of the EU. So action was needed, and we took it along with the assistance of TEKenable. So the Irish Motor Insurance Database was developed, and this is a significant industry project that involved multiple stakeholders, including Insurance Ireland, Department of Transport, and Garda Síochána, and all the insurers operating within Ireland. So we can see here what IMID actually contains. So it is a lot of relevant information for the policies, policy number, type of cover, inception dates, name and address, vehicle registrations, named drivers, and then driver number. So the driver number was only added in March of last year, and this is very important from a road safety point of view, as it provides Garda Síochána with a more comprehensive information about the driver, making it harder for illegal drivers to avoid detection. All Irish driver numbers are validated against the National Vehicle Driver File for accuracy before being made available to the Gardaí. So this ensures that drivers can't try to evade detection by claiming that offences were attributed to their namesake. It also increases the levels of accountability and make it more difficult for drivers to act illegally to evade detention. IMID itself is very effective for Garda Síochána in their battle against uninsured driving and their efforts to enhance road safety. The ease of use of insurance data in the Garda mobility apps has allowed Gardaí to quickly identify the insurance status of vehicles and take actions where the vehicles are identified as being potentially uninsured. As we can see, the handheld mobile device here being used here by the Gardaí at a road check or a checkpoint. But just to note that that's the way that it used to be. They no longer know, because if you went back 10 years ago, you'd always see the guard standing there and guiding you forward, and they're looking at the tax disc, which no, they no longer need to do, or insurance disc. They can catch you at any time. They've got the ANPR cameras within their car, it'll ping, they'll pull you over for having no insurance. You can see here from the stats how successful IMID has really been for An Garda Síochána. They've checked over 4.5 million vehicles through their mobile devices over the course of the last year. For 2025, there was a total of 19,673 vehicles seized by Gardaí for vehicles being driven without insurance. In addition, just over 25,000 summonses and charges were issued by the guards for vehicles being driven without insurance. The availability of insurance data to the Gardaí helps improve road safety, as it should reduce the likelihood of uninsured driving by individuals who may have a relaxed attitude towards safety and the danger this causes for other road users. Research shows that individuals who drive uninsured tend to be involved in more catastrophic incidents. By reducing the number of uninsured drivers and vehicles on the road, An Garda Síochána, with the assistance of IMID, are making an impact on road safety within Ireland. For MIBI, we can see here the numbers here of the impact. So you can see where there was an upward trend of uninsured driving, that's starting now to go down lower, which is exactly how we wanted to run. So what's next for us? So it's very clear to see the advantage IMID has created for us in trying to combat uninsured driving, but we can't really sit back and just think that the job is done. There's more to do. And we hope to utilise AI in doing that. So we've carried out research across the EU, and one of the most common deterrent systems for uninsured driving is a system of continuous vehicle coverage. This has the potential to reduce the level of uninsured driving even further, and then to improve safety on our roads. So what is continuous vehicle coverage? So this means that your car must be insured at all times if you're the registered owner or keeper. Your car must be insured even when it's not being driven, unless it's being put off the road in a very formal way. So this changes the model from being enforcement-led to administrative-led. So previously the guards would have had to catch you driving, whereas now we're proposing our database says you're not insured. In essence, as we say, it moves from offence to use a vehicle without insurance to only one without insurance. And this is an important change in a legislative point of view. But it also then helps create opportunities for us to use AI to influence that process. So what does a CVC look like in practice? Well, the UK have a similar system in place. They call it CIE, and for obvious reasons we could not bring it in CIE, it just wouldn't work. So in the UK, legally, all registered vehicles have to be insured or have a statutory off-road notice submitted to remove vehicles from their database. The MIB UK and the DVLA clash their vehicle registrations against the motor insurance database to identify uninsured vehicles. If the vehicle is identified as being insured for more than 28 days, then the owner keeper is notified and asked to take some action on it. So they can report errors with the insurer if applicable, or get the vehicle insured, or else go do the statutory off-road notice. If the insurance status hasn't changed after day 56, then the DVLA will issue a fixed charge notice to the registered owner, and then by day 182, if that's not paid, then the police are told, and they take action on it. To give you some idea of the volume of that's involved in here, so MIB UK sends out about 730,000 insurance letters annually, or about 14,000 per week. And this gives them a hit back of about 70% of their responses. So through that, then they'll see insurance is purchased by the vehicle owner, vehicle is declared off-road, or else an error in the database is corrected. So you can see from just what I said there and the numbers involved, this is a very labour-intensive process with a lot of touch points. And when you step back and look at that process, it's really ideal for AI technology to come in and have a look at what's going on. From the clash of the databases, to issuing letters, to notification to the police, all of that can be processed via AI and the creation of a digital employee. And again, that will just lead to a more efficient process and hopefully then a reduction in the uninsured rate and safer roads. This CVC, if brought in by the government, AI is I don't know which one's made for which, but they're made for each other because it would really work really well together. So with inclusion then, so the impact of AI across the MIBI estate and road safety has huge potential. From our own internal processes on creating claims, email automation, all of which lead to better customer service and potentially quicker claim resolution. Using AI, we can detect fraudulent claims and reduce stage accidents that may involve innocent victims. And through IMID, we can use AI to determine areas where uninsured rates are high, automate processes around the possible implementation of continuous vehicle coverage to make an effective and seamless process that will help to remove uninsured drivers and in doing so, make Irish roads safer. For anyone that wants to, the Irish Motor Insurance Database annual report is freshly published, and if you so wish to, you can get it from the QR code. Thank you very much.
Tricia Hughes from Ask Acorn Insurance. And my question is, you put up the 2025 numbers, but what improvement was that versus 2024 previous years?
So in 2024, they would have been similar. So the IMID process to the guards went out in tail end of 2023. So you can see there's a massive jump in the numbers. So on top of my head, I'm going to say that the average detection in 2023 per month was about 500. That jumped up to about 1,200-1,300 per month when they started using IMID. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Paddy, you're really just starting out on your AI journey, and it's maybe just give a sense of, I suppose, bringing, we're talking about the board and other members. What challenges have you in relation to kind of bringing everyone on board, or what journey are you looking at to go forward? Because you're at the cusp of, doing an awful lot in AI.
So I suppose from our point of view, we're tipping our toes in the water first. We're going to go through the email route and then go through the claim form route. And it's to get an idea and a sense of how beneficial that could be to our organisation. So we have a direct staff of only about 18 people, and then we have others then that deal with our claims outside of that. So for the impact on our staff, it can be, depending on which section you're in, it can be minimal or it can be very big. But if we get the claims process issue or the claim forms in, you're going from maybe a day to get a claim set up, scanned, renamed, to maybe just minutes. And that's massive. That frees up our resources immensely. But if that works, then we would start to look at more in relation to fraud, and then definitely into the finance as to whether we can settle claims quickly in finance and then get them paid out depending on the nature of the claim that they do. So for us, it's that stepping stone, but the possibilities are massive on it.
Hi, so Patrick O'Donnell and Esto. I'm kind of curious on the deep fakes. So keeping ahead of that must be a continuous struggle. So that as they get better, then they're possible to detect them then becomes a challenge.
That is a challenge. I suppose in a way with MIBI, with our model that we have, so we have an outsourcing model, so our claims are handled out to a number of insurance companies. But it's for us then to make sure that those insurance companies are doing what they need to do with the deepfakes to get them in. We may then look at whether we bring in a system to identify deepfakes within our own organisation, but we tend to take the data in, look for fraud initially if we can, and then pass it out. But yeah, it's going to be a struggle to try and keep on top of that. Yeah, very much so.